You are a slave girl in the emperor's house. Tomorrow, you could be nobody. Or you could be the most powerful woman in Rome who legally doesn't exist. Tier 1, Ancilla, the slave. You start at the bottom of the ladder, and the bottom has no rights attached to it at all. An Ancilla is a female slave. Under Roman law, she's property, a thing, not a legal person. If the master of the house wants her sexually, there's no crime here, because a slave can't be raped in the eyes of Roman law. She has no body the law recognizes as hers to refuse with. Any children she has belong to her owner, not to her. This isn't a side detail. It's the flaw everything else in this video gets measured against. Every tier above this one is defined by how far a woman has climbed away from being Ancilla, and how fast she can fall back. Because that's the mechanic here. Status in a Roman household isn't fixed. It's a position you hold as long as the man at the top wants you in it. Keep this in mind for the next 10 minutes. Every single tier above this one can be erased by one document, a marriage contract. We'll get there. Tier 2, Concubina, the recognized partner. Climb one rung and you hit concubinatus, concubinage. This is the one Rome actually had a legal word for. A concubina is not a wife, but she's not nothing either. She's in a stable, exclusive, long-term relationship recognized by Roman custom and, eventually, by law. Usually she's a freeborn woman of lower status, or a freedwoman. Someone a man couldn't or wouldn't marry because of class difference, but wanted around permanently. Here's the catch that defines this whole tier. Her children are not legitimate heirs. They can't inherit like a wife's children can. She brings no dowry, and the relationship carries none of the legal weight of matrimonium. She's upgraded from property to person, but she's a person with a ceiling built into the relationship from day one. Soldiers used this status constantly. Roman law banned active duty soldiers from marrying, so a concubina was often the only long-term partnership a legionary was allowed to have. Quick one, would you rather have Tier 1's total lack of freedom, or Tier 2's freedom with a permanent ceiling on it? Drop a number, 1 or 2. Tier 3, Liberta, the freedwoman. Now the path splits, because status in Rome runs on more than one axis. This tier isn't about the relationship, it's about what happened to the woman herself. A Liberta is a freed slave. Manumission, the act of freeing her, could come from the same man she used to serve, sometimes specifically so he could then take her as a concubine or even marry her. Once freed, she gains a version of legal personhood. She can own property. She can, in some cases, testify. She's climbed further from Tier 1 than most women ever will. But manumission comes from him. It's a gift, not a right, and it can carry conditions attached, obligations to her former owner that don't fully disappear just because the paperwork changed. This is the tier where the ladder stops being just about sex or partnership and becomes about leverage. A freedwoman who was useful, smart, capable, trusted with real responsibility, could turn manumission into genuine influence. Which is exactly what happens at the next tier. This is where the ladder stops looking like status and starts looking like power. Tier 4, the favorite. 2 women make this tier real, not theoretical. Antonia Caenis started as a slave and secretary to Antonia Minor, Claudius's mother. She became the freedwoman concubine of Vespasian, the future emperor, and stayed with him for decades, including after he became princeps. She never got a title. She didn't need one. Ancient sources say she managed his correspondence and took payment for arranging appointments and favors on his behalf. Vespasian, notoriously frugal, let her do it. That tells you what her position was actually worth to him. Claudia Acte followed a similar climb under Nero, a freedwoman who became his mistress early in his reign, influential enough that ancient sources frame her as a counterweight to his mother Agrippina's control over him. When Nero died, Acte was one of the people who arranged his burial. Neither woman was ever legally a wife. Neither shows up in the tier system with a title. But both had something Tier 2 and Tier 3 don't guarantee. Proximity to power, used skillfully enough to become power in its own right. This is the highest tier reachable through the concubine path alone. There's no rank above it, because the next tier isn't reached by climbing. It's reached by a different door entirely. If you had to pick, Caenis's decades of quiet financial influence, or Acte's high-stakes political positioning under Nero. Type C or A. If tiered status systems like this are your thing, the military ranks video on this channel runs the same climb from Tyro to Legatus. Worth a watch after this one. The ceiling. Why this tier system has a trapdoor. Here's the turning point, and it's the thing that makes every tier above Tier 1 fragile in a way military ranks never are. A soldier who reaches Legatus keeps that rank. It's earned, documented, permanent. A concubine, even one at Caenis's level, with decades of trust and real financial power, has no legal flaw under her at all. Her position exists entirely at the discretion of the man she's attached to. Marry the right woman, and legally, the concubine's position doesn't get demoted. It gets deleted. A wife's children inherit, a concubine's don't, no matter how long the relationship lasted or how much real influence she wielded. Vespasian never married Caenis. Some historians point to the political value an eventual dynastic marriage held for his sons as the reason. She held real power for over 20 years, and legally, none of it converted into permanence. That's the mechanic underneath this entire ladder. Status here isn't inheritance proof. It's relationship proof only for as long as the relationship itself holds. Tier 5, Uxa, the legal wife. The tier off the concubine path entirely. This is the final tier, and it's the one that proves the whole system by contrast. An Uxa, legal wife, brings a dowry, produces legitimate heirs, and holds the legal protections of matrimonium. If her husband becomes emperor, she can become Augusta, with her own household, her own income, sometimes her own political machine, the way Livia did under Augustus and Agrippina the Younger did under Claudius and Nero. But, and this is the point, you cannot climb into this tier from Tier 4. A concubine doesn't get promoted to wife through years of service. Wife is a status assigned by birth, dowry, and political calculation, decided before the relationship even starts. Caenis could run Vespasian's finances for 20 years and never cross into this tier, because the tier was never about merit. It was about whether her family could bring political value a marriage was meant to buy. That's the real design of this ladder, and it's colder than a straightforward rank system. 5 tiers exist as a path a woman can actually climb. The 6th tier exists as proof that the climb was never going to the same place. If you want the male side equivalent of this, the actual rank ladder from Tyro to Legatus Legionis, it's linked on screen, and it's the video that started this whole series. Subscribe if Roman social hierarchy is your thing. There's more of this ladder still to map.